trying to make this. Should I make it
Thomas
be wide?
Pridgen. It's up to you, bro. Actually, that would be beautiful if you did, bro. That'd be great.
Wide? I'm just trying to make this thing be higher. Hold on real quick. Oh my God, this shit is not high. Maybe if I put it on let's see if this works. I'm trying to put this thing on a snare or something.
It's perfect.
Oh, that didn't work. Hold on, give me one second, bro. My thing is, I know what's wrong.
No rush, man.
I'm trying.
No, you're crushing it, man. It's going great.
How do I do this?
That's great, man. That's totally fine, dude.
One second.
Cool.
Oh, fuck. I'm trying. Hold on. How can I make this not be so high?
That looks good to me, man.
Yeah, because you're looking nice over there. So
but the green backdrop, bro, the green backdrop and the vinyls looks really good.
All right. Cool. Well, maybe if I scoot the thing back a little bit.
Yeah. Do that.
Okay. And then angle. Damn, how do I get this bitch to be higher?
Just a little bit, bro. It's only a little bit. You're nearly there.
I know. Okay.
That looks fantastic.
I think I got this, man.
Amazing, bro.
I had to go get my suitcase.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Whatever it takes, eh?
Sorry, bro.
Nah, bro, don't apologize.
I got a 1-year-old. His little ass be going ballistic, so we were just trying to get him out the house.
Fuck, I really appreciate you doing that, man.
It's all good.
I've got a 14-week-old.
Yeah, these little monsters. Okay.
There he is. Look at you handsome bastard.
Okay.
How are you, bro?
I'm doing good, bro.
Hey, I want to say straight off the bat that this, like, it looks like it's this really formal thing. I mean, but it's not, man. You and I have talked about talking for a real long time now. And you know, I don't do interviews, bro, but I wanted to talk to you for a couple of reasons. So first of all, I just want to say thanks for making the time, man, because, you know, time is money, and especially when you've got a family and things like that. So I super appreciate you doing whatever you did to make this happen. And like I say, bro, we've talked about this for a long time, right? Yeah, we've even jumped on the phone a couple of times. I think we
like a year or something of us talking about doing this.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, you know, like you and I have shot messages back and forward for a few years now. We got on a call once when we were discussing gospel chops and that whole thing. And the thing that I'm always attracted to with you, well, I mean, okay, I've probably got to start it from the start. First and foremost, I just got a massive appreciation for you, man. Like, in my opinion, and I mean, you know, you will know this. You are one of the most influential drummers of the last 15 years, without a doubt.
I appreciate you.
You know that, bro. You do know that, eh? I mean, come on, man. I know that. You know the data better than me.
No, I feel like I feel like I came at a special time. Like we all, anybody who was, you know, graduating from college or high school around 2000 when the millennia changed, we have a special thing because we're at the end of the period of no internet and at the beginning of everything internet.
Definitely.
So our perspectives are a lot different, and we're kind of like multi-generational, just being around that certain time, you know?
Yeah, and I watched, like, because I went back into some of your stuff over the last few days, the stuff that I've seen countless times already, but it's always good to refresh. And I saw that '08 video that Gerald did for Gospel Chops, and you even say, this is the first time I'm on the interwebs doing a thing, you know? Yeah. And if you think about that, like, that was only 15 years ago, and I mean, shit. God, I mean, how many videos of you online now? Like, and look at what's happened within that time. 15 years, bro. That's all.
It just took off, bro. The internet just went crazy.
What I like about you, and I've always watched this from a distance, is that you've always had your truth and you've always spoken your truth. And man, like, you'll know what it's like in your scene in particular. I won't say my scene because, you know, we can call drumming a scene, but your scene in particular, which is the American drumming culture, I would say that your voice is one of the most pure voices. And when I say pure, I just mean that you're very honest. about,
Yeah.
you don't, you're very honest to yourself and about how you feel about what you're seeing and thinking. And you put that online. And too many guys, I'm not going to say too many, I'll say a lot of people tend to guard their opinions out of the fear of pushback or
All sorts, all sorts.
endorsements, fucking gigs, all of that sort of stuff. So I've always liked the fact that you're quite real, to put it that way, But there are, like, I don't want this to turn into a 2 hour thing as well, because I actually like the idea of you and I getting on a chat every now and then. And the reason being is that, you're up in the States and you've got a whole different thing to me. I'm down in New Zealand, bro. And like, we've only got 5 million people here and like a tiny little drum culture. And my personal drumming is so influenced by you and what your world created, like your guys created. So I just think it's a nice dichotomy between us that could have a yarn every now and then, hopefully. But I did want to touch on some stuff today that, like, because I've listened to a lot of stuff that when you've talked to other podcasts or videos and whatnot, and there's stuff about those conversations that I want to touch on that people don't really talk about, and maybe it's because of my personal interests in your story and whatnot. So I want to touch on some stuff, but I'm also quite happy for you to kind of talk about it to the level that you are happy to talk about it. Like, nothing needs to be said that doesn't need to be said. You know what I mean? But I'm really interested in the details around like your story, So without going into that sort of boring stuff about, you started drumming when you were 3, so I know that much. So that's right. And I know that your grandmother had a huge play in your education as a drummer, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so is that because she is just really heavily invested in you, or is that because you lived with her? Is that because your parents were doing other things? And, what's the sort of situation there?
Well, like my whole family, my mom actually is a nurse and she worked nights.
True.
So she worked nights. She's been working at the hospital since like for 40 something years. So when
Wow.
she still works and she worked at night, so she would sleep a lot. And I was just always, my grandmother. And then, my whole family dichotomy was that we had to go to church on Sundays. And so Sunday I would go to church when I was really young. And then I just, I feel like a lot of kids at church just make it fun by just, picking up an instrument or getting in the choir or getting into some sort of activity at church because you're there so much. And I just grew to love my grandmother's house and being there because she was like taking me to church. I had my drums there. And my
So
mom
she was nurturing you.
Yeah, she just knew what I like to do. And while my mom, she didn't really understand it. She was like, this kid is getting into drums. Like, she knew I was good, but it wasn't like she didn't feel like it could be a thing because she never saw it. While my grandmother was already a musician. So
True.
she kind of knew.
Play?
She played piano.
Wicked.
And she would, like, I have stories about people recently be like, your grandma used to be like, do you think my grandson has it? So she saw something in me, but she also asked a lot of people who were already developed musicians if they felt like I had a chance.
Yeah.
And they would say yes. So it was hard to listen to my mom at the time just because it was like, people are saying he got it, just let him go with it. So it's kind of like, the inward fighting that families have where they see something in a child and somebody else wants the kid to do something else. It's kind of like that. But yeah, I just was just in church, and it was a lot of good musicians around the church services I was in.
So hang on, this is in San Fran in Oakland?
Yeah, my grandmother, she sung in a church choir, and then she sung in a community church choir, which is just all the choirs from all the different churches would get together, and they would travel to different churches. And that's how we would meet. Like, we had our own band of church, and then we'd meet all these other guys from all these various churches. And then when you travel around, you meet even more people. And then they have church conventions, and that's how I met, like, Aaron Spears and like.
But where was
Aaron? Those guys, because
where was Aaron?
It starts to be a church convention.
Right.
Aaron is in DC, but the community choirs, they travel. So you might go to LA, and then you might meet at a regional thing, and then you meet at the national thing, and the national thing hops around. So it'll be DC one year, Chicago, New Orleans. So that's how all these church drummers have met each other as kids, is because we all was running around with the church conventions.
Cool, man. Yeah, I
And
always wondered how you guys knew each other, but you were from different areas. Like I know, and because I was going to get into this, but I'll save it for later. But I wanted to touch on that video that you did with Royster, you know,
yeah,
and that pairing with you and him, and even because it comes, yeah, because I don't know if you guys are friends in that video or even that familiar with each other. I mean, obviously you're familiar with
yeah.
each other, but you know, like it's yeah, I always wondered how that sort of rolled, how you guys sort of, I mean, you know, Eric Moore and all these guys, and whether you were paired together through the use of your companies as well, and all that sort of stuff. But we'll get on to that in a second. I'm still interested in this early stuff. So within your like schooling through the church and stuff, and your grandmother, where does Tony Williams fit into this for you?
Well, I live right now in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of drummers that's from this area. You have Dave Garibaldi, you
Right.
have Troy Laketta, you have Tony Williams, you have Louis Belson, you have Sheila E, you have Narder Michael Walden.
Wow.
It's Mike Clark from
Yeah, yeah,
Headhunters.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You have so many different type of artists that are from this area who you don't know if they live in LA or they live in the Bay. So, and I also have Alfredo Reyes. Tony Williams was teaching at a drum store called Drum World.
Mm.
And so Drum World was like, before it was Guitar Center, but Guitar Center was still kind of small. Drum World was like the super big drum store, and they had one in San Francisco. And that's the place you can get like boutique drums. Like you can get like GMS and Noble Cooley and like
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
nice stuff you really want. So we would go like on Saturdays, we would just like have a field trip. Let's go to Drum World. So when I've been going to Drum World since I was like 7 or 8, like super young. And so I just met everybody there. So I originally was taking lessons from Dave Garibaldi, and that's because he was more affordable. Tony Williams lessons at the time were like $200, and in the '90s that was expensive.
For how long?
So that was, I mean, they're an hour, but he used to do master classes. Like he wouldn't do one-on-ones, he would do master classes, but he would do $200 a master class, and people would want to go because they know he's Tony Williams, but it was expensive for that time. So for me to be able to have a considerable amount of lessons consecutively, she went for the lower price. So I went to Dave Garibaldi because he was lower price. So I
Man, that
had,
makes so much sense that you're a Garibaldi student because the
yeah.
way that
So
you play is such a unique way, even within the genre that you tend to get put in, the gospel thing. Like you're an anomaly, and there's only a few guys that I would say that have a unique voice. And
yeah,
obviously David had a huge impact on that now that I'm looking at it. Is that right?
yeah, Dave. I used to go get lessons from Dave on reading and rudiments, and then I would be at home watching his videos. Like I
Wow.
learned Tower of Power really late. Like I met Dave Garibaldi and I knew about Tower of Power, but I wasn't like a fan of Tower of Power. I was a kid. So
Mhm.
I was taking lessons from him. I took lessons from Troy Laketta, from
Yeah.
Tesla.
Yeah.
I took lessons from Curtis Newdall, rest in peace. I took lessons from anybody who would show me something. Like I would pull up to a church thing and I'd be like, show me something. So a large majority of the guys who are older than me, they know me from sitting behind the drums. Like I would, go to, this is kind of fast forward, but at that time when I was getting to that level, taking lessons and all that stuff, I also I just kind of got endorsed, and I like all of it kind of happened at the same time. Like I was taking lessons at Guitar Center. I mean at Drum World. I ended up, sitting in with Dennis Chambers and a bunch of artists that lived in the Bay Area. My drum teacher was letting me sub out his gigs, and then I ended up getting an endorsement. The
So you were
lady
the
from
youngest Zildjian endorsee, right?
Yeah, at the time, I'm
10.
sure somebody has beat me by now. Yes,
Well, man, with social media, probably a
maybe
6-year-old.
boy drum something.
So you were 10
But
though, right?
no, I was like 9 or 10. Like I was turning 10.
Madness.
Yeah, it was crazy.
You must have
But
loved it, man.
but like the first year that I got endorsed, I went to NAMM show.
Right.
That's how I met Tony Royster and Ronald. And
Oh, okay.
that's how I was meeting guys who I didn't grow up in church with.
But did you know of them? Did you know of Royster? Was the word
I
already
mean,
getting around?
I knew of Royster, kind of. I didn't know Ronald at all. I knew Eric Moore because we're from the same city.
Oh, okay.
Um, and a lot of us are from the same city. Carlin from Shed Tracks,
Hmm.
he lived 5 minutes from me.
Oh, wow.
Justin Brown, his mom played organ in church, so we knew each other from church.
Amazing
A
drummer.
lot of us knew each other from like the church scene.
Yeah, yeah.
But like what separated me was that since I got endorsed so early, I had access to like DCI drum videos. So like I had access to magazines because I was going to the drum stores. So I was influenced by like guys that were outside of church very early. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like I was young, bringing a double pedal to church, and people was like, "Why would you do that?" You know what I mean? Like
I did
I
notice on a
remember,
couple of your early videos that you are talking about, or you show your setup and you've got videos and you've got magazines coming out of,
yeah,
everything, and you've got like like 50 snares or whatever, and you're quite young at this point. And one thing that I know of you is that you actually schooled properly on drums. You know your history, you know the
yeah,
greats, you know the music. You're not just someone who just plays and takes it for granted. You actually do have a history. You know the history.
yeah. That was just one of the things that like I mean, my grandmother wanted me to learn how to play all the different styles. But I was mainly just like going through Modern Drummer and just picking a drummer, and I would
Mm.
just go check them out, you know. And I was just very much more into like what was going on as far as like who they are, and I like to be able to know what was going on. So I had like books about like the history of the cymbals, the history of the pedal.
Oh, cool.
Um, I just knew a lot about just like the actual drum, you know. And then I also played multiple different styles.
Yes.
So if you play like if you when you play jazz, you're automatically thrown in a traditionalistic like style where
Mm.
people are gonna be like, this is how they feather the bass drum, this is how they play brushes, this is what they were playing brushes on. You know what I mean? So I kind of like was learning a lot of things historically about drums just because I was just very enthralled in it, you know.
Yeah, there's a proper education with you that I noticed. Like you've got a nuance that like a lot of guys in the gospel scene just don't have. And there's a few guys that I would say have that nuance, like, Coleman has that nuance, where they have a touch that is not common within that, like the majority of the gospel players, you know what I mean? The dime a dozen
Yeah,
guys. But you have a nuance. And also you've got a bombastic style that's not common. You've got this sort of like fucking rock thing, man. And obviously lend itself to the Volta really well, which we'll get into, but still very unique within the world that you sort of came out of. And so you're saying it's all the external influences that created that.
yeah, and like I was skateboarding, so like I was listening to like punk rock. I was looking at punk rock and rock artists when like gospel artists was deeming that to be like secular or
Yeah.
not the thing to listen to. So I was always influenced. I was coming to church thinking about Dave Weckl, while a lot of the other drummers was coming into church thinking about Jeff Davis or
Yeah,
Joel
true.
Smith. I like Jeff Davis and Joel Smith too; they legends. But I was just coming from a different place, and I also was looking at Dennis Chambers, Will Kennedy. I was looking at Rodney Holmes. I'm looking at Vinny. I'm looking
Mm.
at Dave. I'm looking at all the Latin guys, and so
I get
like,
a I get a major Vinny vibe from you. And
mhm.
it's that animalistic control. Like Wickel's got his thing, man, but like he's, so polished, but Vinny's just got this like bombastic ferocity. And I definitely see that in you, which is like I say, it's quite a unique thing within their style. Because I find that from an outside perspective, the gospel scene that we got pitched and advertised, it's it's sort of one thing almost, but you've never been that one thing, even though you were sort of in that world. I've always found that super interesting. Before we move on from Tony though, I just want to know, like, because I heard that he really stressed doubles to you. Like doubles were super important. And is that sort of the takeaway that you got from him? Did he leave an impact on you in that sense? Or is that
I,
just
I think when I was young, I didn't really understand, and then later on, like sometimes like you get a lesson from somebody and it don't hit you immediately.
yeah.
And then so like I feel like what he kind of like just I think what I learned from him the most is just like never feeling like you had it. Like he would practice stuff that, he obviously had, and that's why he was so like, so polished and like so great at, just simple things like doubles and singles. Like he just had so much control just because he never felt like he had it. He constantly would practice these things that were deemed kind of like, simple. He would make the simple
Bro,
things harder. And then
I
I
like
also,
that. that mentality, sorry to cut you off, but that mentality I find is not very common in drumming because, you know, there's that Jojo Mayer quote that seems to get run to death where it's like, if it sounds good, you're not practicing. And I just think that's
Yeah,
fucking bullshit, man. Like, I want to
yeah,
learn what I can do to the point where it's mindlessly incredible, not just good or great. Like, I want to know my shit well beyond the point of good and great, you know?
yeah. I also don't think Tony Williams felt like he was great like that. Like I feel like the guys who are really, really, really good, they are always like seeing something inside of what they're doing that could be better, or
For sure.
like their perception of what is good changes constantly. So it's like
Definitely.
maybe my bombastic thing is cool, but maybe my finesse thing is not. Or maybe my finesse and my bombastic thing is great, but my time is not good. So it's always these things that
Yeah.
are like that always influence like actual just creating that are just bigger than just one piece.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes if you can, I think what I'll say the takeaway is that if you can focus on one small thing, it's very easy to focus on all these other things. Sometimes like just like the way I learn music, like I'll simplify just I'll simplify things straight to like the form.
Yeah.
And then I'll start going back to like, oh, what time signatures is doing? Or it's just like kind of like removing some of the layers just so you can actually concentrate
On the
on
details.
yeah, because that I think that's a large majority of the difficulty in playing so many different styles of music is that
And the
everyone can
dynamic range, because you have incredible dynamic range.
yeah
Like you can go so fucking hard and at the top of like, you know, all full force. And then you've got this like feathering, like you say, you've got this butteriness, this little detail that you can go to as well. And that's really hard for a lot of drummers, you know?
dude, it's hard for me. It's
Yeah, for
hard.
sure. Of course. Yeah.
Sometimes if I'm playing rock too long, I'll like crave playing in a jazz club. And if
That's
I'm playing in a jazz club too long, I'll be like, dude, I need to play something else. I really, since especially just because I like so many different styles, I crave like different things, almost like food. I'm like, I cannot play rock or jazz too long before I want to start playing Latin music or practicing soloing. I just just be like, I just need to switch it up. So
it's funny. I
yeah,
watched your Modern Drummer performance, the festival performance again last night. And
yeah,
fuck, it's good, man. Like your control on that is just fantastic, eh? And I think you're probably doing some of the best single kick like showcasing that I've probably ever heard. But it's funny,
uh,
like no one's going to sit there and pull that little moment out as like for what it is. But I watched it again, especially because you know obviously I've gone down that path myself with the single kick and whatnot, and I was like, fuck, man, like I don't know if I've heard anyone with that good a control. The way you were moving between the subdivisions and then where you were placing your doubles within it and just full force the whole way, and then the featheriness, but you never lost control when you were doing that example. It's just super
yeah.
interesting. Like the scope of your playing, I think covers a lot more than what even just at a glance what people would even notice, you know?
Yeah, I used to trip out, man. I used to watch all these modern drummer articles. They'd be like, man, the king of the bass drum, Colin Bailey. And I used to be like, what is he doing that is so crazy?
Yeah.
And I grew up in church where, a lot of people don't really know, but Doobie Powell plays flat footed. He's a drummer, plays keys. He plays flat footed. I remember watching him in a church service playing flat footed, playing doubles. It's like,
Right.
that's so and like I just remember just so many church dudes. The church dudes have like the quickest single pedal stuff, and I
Amen.
just started applying. I would apply certain things that I saw on that first Virgin Donati video,
Oh yeah.
and that's just how I just I just tend to like go to multiple influences and just combine the exercises. I combine the ideas. Like you don't have to play guitar to channel a Jimi Hendrix. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have to it's weird. It's like you can channel an energy without actually playing the same instrument just by
Mm.
like just the influence that it gives you. Or even if you ever seen Kyrie Irving
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like bounce a ball. Like if you ever
Yes.
seen Kyrie do a bounce like dribbling like his exercises, it'll trip you out because he can dribble two balls at the same time. So can you go and do two pedals at the same time and play doubles? Do, do,
Mm.
do, 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 do. And I would go to that level of practice and sometimes I wouldn't be able to apply it at a church service or at a jazz club but this idea of doing this for a long time, it changes some in you because no one else practices like that.
Yeah,
So
I think that you
yeah,
understood
I
from,
just tend to get in.
I was going to say, sorry, you understood from a really early age the value in just doing rep work over and
Yeah,
over and over, you
yeah. You
know?
love to play music. You love to play music. So what's the big deal in watching a TV show and playing a pedal? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's what I say to my students all the time. It's like, fuck, like what you're trying to do is actually not hard to grasp in concept. What's hard is you showing up every friggin' day and logging those hours. That's the hard shit,
mhm.
you know, especially when it comes to sort of dynamic range and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So what I wanted to get into now, man, is talk about, because around that OH time, obviously Aaron Spears, the RIP, you know, Aaron Spears video on Modern Drummer dropped in '06, I think it was, the Usher clip. And
Mhm.
your I mean, I don't know if the upload of the video was around the same time, but your video with Gerald for Gospel Chops, with man, like that intro to that, you know, like
Mhm.
that Gospel Chops video is just so iconic to me and my circle back here, just that real short little thing. And did was that sort of like when things started to pop off for you? Oh wait, was it around then?
Not really. I think well, I mean, things was popping off the whole time. I was fighting it. Like I was
True.
making I was making beats for rappers. I was kind of engulfed in like a bunch of like neighborhood ridiculous stuff. And I was playing with Keisha Cole, but
Hmm.
I was still in my neighborhood. And then me and Christian Scott, we went to college together. So
Oh, true.
when I got out of college, Christian, we did two records, and then we toured a little bit, but we didn't do any like crazy touring at the time. And then I did Keisha, and then so I was doing Keisha and doing Christian off and on, and then I did the Gospel Chops video. I low key wasn't even tripping off it, bro. Like somebody was like, I want to do this video," and I was like, all right, like I
So
wasn't tripping. Like
so where was he based? Did he come and
he was,
source you out?
you know. So
Oh,
he's like an hour away.
okay, not too far. Yeah.
Nah, so he drove out and he was like, "Never doing this video." So I went to my grandmother's house where my drums were, set up some mismatched drum set, and just let it go. Like
And
I
you even
wasn't,
say that in the video. You're like, oh man, I didn't even think about what I was going to work on here. And this kit's just something I threw together. And actually, I watched the video and you actually it was a
yeah,
really good lesson. It was a great lesson.
yeah. I mean, I'm playing no matter what kind of drum set it is. But it was, I didn't expect for it to be anything. It was, I was just well, whatever.
So is that the same time that you did the video with Royster, where it's just you two?
Yeah, it was the same. I did the thing at my grandmother's house, and I think maybe a half year later he wanted to do an actual thing where we all got in the room. And
So the one where it's just you and Royster, that's separate from the shed sessions with the four of you. Is that right?
that's the same. That was the same day. We had one where he came to my house,
Yeah.
and then we had a couple months off, and then we got together in a room. It was me, Eric Moore, David Jackson, Jan Hunter, Joey Oscar,
Yeah.
Tony, and so yeah, that was a couple months later.
And how did you feel, like looking back on that? How did you feel at the time, right? So how did you feel in the room at the time? Hang on. And then how do you feel about it now looking back on it? So those are two separate questions.
At the time, I was pissed because I was getting evicted by my auntie that exact day. I was like, my auntie, I was staying at my auntie's house and she was trying to evict us on the
Oh,
same day I go to this thing.
oh, bro.
And so like me, like I was in the wildest mood. I didn't really care.
Right. You have that
And then
energy, man. You have that annoyed energy.
yeah, I was going through some life shit. And then like now I feel like everything you've ever seen me do, I was going through some life shit.
True.
Like,
Well, that's
like
just life though, isn't it?
yeah, even like David Letterman, like, it don't always have to be a negative life thing, but I was going through some like I was young and I knew I was on TV, you know what I mean? I remember watching Buddy Rich on TV and I remember watching all these other drummers never play like Buddy Rich on TV. So I was like, I'm about to go ballistic. So it's like, but I was on some life thing there. So it's like I'm always like I'm a human first, you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah, and you're a
for me,
father as well, which is something you don't talk about often, but I want to touch on that a little bit later, only to the level that you want to talk about it. But yeah, like there's always some shit going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, it's just for me. It's like, everything I'm doing. It's like I take where I'm at that moment. I'm like, so it's like
Well, I mean, from the outside perspective, without knowing you were getting evicted, it's like that's a pretty pivotal time in drumming, man. Like that video and the impact that it made, especially after time, because it took a while for the gospel thing to really hit the rest of the drumming world, outside of your
yeah,
direct community. And man, I mean, like I keep saying, like, one of the most influential drummers, and I would say we're talking single digits here in terms of how many fall into that category in the last 15 years. And it's
man,
no, you can't comment on that. I'm saying it because
and the thing about the gospel thing is that thing about the gospel thing is that these guys were already here.
mm,
It's that like the industry had, especially at that moment, it's had this thing where it'll be like, oh man, we want to showcase the country drummers. Oh,
yes.
we need to showcase the New Orleans ragtime drummers. Oh, we need to showcase the Afro-Cuban drummers. And then we need to show the gospel drummers. And then we need to show the hip hop drummers. And then in a year, we need to showcase the tick. It's just these people have to compartmentalize everything.
But I kind
But
of felt like the gospel scene was almost kept at bay from the mainstream drumming community. And then once they opened the floodgates, they realized how much they could capitalize on it. That's kind of like how
they,
I've always viewed it.
they didn't want the gospel drummers in there, just like they didn't want Dennis Chambers on the Buddy Rich Memorial. It's the
Mm,
same thing. They didn't want Steve Smith didn't want Marvin Smitty Smith to play next to him on a Buddy Rich concert.
far
And a
out.
large majority of it is because they don't have a name and no one knows him. And so a lot of people are like they're associated by, with the name and who you play with, and they don't realize that it's a lot of people playing drums.
And not only
And
that, but really fucking well. Like, man, holy shit. Look at
I'm
that,
being nice.
bro.
I'm
Look at
being
that.
nice, trying to tell you that they know that people can outplay them.
Oh
They
yeah,
know
I
it.
know. It's an ego thing for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is the thing that the concentrated amount of talent coming out of that scene is by far bigger than any other scene percentage wise. And this is why I keep saying like the influence that that gospel thing has had on the drumming industry as a whole. I mean, it's still potent to this day. I mean, every fucking modern drummer is influenced, whether directly or indirectly, by gospel, which is influenced by obviously drummers before that, Chambers, Weckl, Vinny, all of that. But a lot of guys don't know the history before gospel, the newer younger players, and it's just interesting how impactful that style has actually shaped modern drumming now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, if anyone's playing linear chops on fucking Instagram, that's where it's pulling from.
But it's not even just the chops, man. It's if you listen to Steve Gadd, if you listen,
I know,
Steve Gadd,
I know that.
like, I mean, he sounds like James Gadson. He sounds like Yogi Horton.
Yeah,
You
it
know what
always
I
goes
mean?
back, right? Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so it's like even all styles of music is, I mean, from the blues to R&B, it's like
Yes.
inspired
Yeah,
by gospel.
everyone's a product of their influence. I think the point I'm trying to make the most is that out of this specifically is that how much impact is just crazy, right?
Mhm. I
And
understand what you're saying.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so something else that I wanted to dig into too is that you and I jumped on a phone call once because within that gospel chops conversation a few years back when I was back in Melbourne, I think Gerald was talking about it. He was annoyed. Oh, there was the lawsuit going on with Vic Firth. I think it was with the gospel's chopsticks or whatever, because companies started to brand the term, right, that he had already coined as a brand. And then I remember you talking about, I can't remember specifically, but you mentioned something in your socials about gospel chops, the brand being a brand first, I think it was. And then I think I said to you, well, it's funny because from my perspective, down the bottom of the earth, like gospel chops is a style to us because it's almost like a band-aid is a band-aid, like it almost superseded Gerald's intention of it being a brand and it just became the way that we acknowledged the style. And you and I jumped on a phone call and talked about that. Do you remember that?
I do remember that conversation. I don't remember exactly what we said, but I do
Nah,
remember that
nah, nah.
conversation.
Neither do I. Actually don't remember the
Yeah.
specifics either. But I always thought it's super interesting. Like, how do you feel about the impact? Like, how do you feel about the gospel thing now in retrospect? And sort of where do you sit with it all? Just the style of drumming, and then how big it got, the way the industry grabbed it, and sort of like tried to run with it, and then Gerald sort of pushing back on those things, and sort of where do you sit with it now?
I think like at the time I was like, a lot of drummers on there wasn't necessarily church drummers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they didn't really play in church where I mean, a large majority of people I'm going to name are people who I know for sure had an impact on gospel drumming. You know, church drummers like, you know, Terry Baker and Butch Galloway, and Gerald Haywood, and Eddie Haywood or
Mm.
Liddell Abrams. Those are like gospel legends to me.
Oh,
So at
Calvin
that moment,
Rogers.
but Calvin Rodgers, even Marvin McQuitty. I had a crazy like issue with just that in respect of like people not knowing the actual history of the guys who actually that we used to watch, you know. But in retrospect, I think that is really cool that it was created to this degree because it just gives a lot of young drummers, especially a lot of the new drummers, that maybe they didn't play in church, or you know, maybe they know they're inspired, or maybe they don't know, but it gives them an outlet and they can be seen. And I honestly feel like when I was coming up, a large majority of these dudes wouldn't have got seen if it wasn't for gospel chops and just like the just influence of the drummers who came out of gospel chops. I feel like it's created a big world for just young drummers.
Absolutely. And man, another,
You know?
once again, from my perspective, it got me into Marvin Sapp, it got me into James Fortune, and I'm not a church guy, man. I just wasn't brought up in the church, but fuck, I've listened to a lot of church music now, and I love
Yeah.
everything that it gives me. Like, I'm not, I don't have a religious history, but I'm spiritual. You know, we all are in some degree. And man, like, fuck, like some of our Marvin Sapp stuff just hits me so hard, but just from a different perspective. And I was introduced to it purely through Calvin Rogers, you know,
Yep.
and so that's, I think that's really cool as well, is that it superseded, it surpassed the genre to a wider audience where you can listen to it and still get what its intention is, even without the context of the religious aspect. It's quite interesting. I mean, fuck,
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't realize there was so much talent going on over there in that scene. I mean, you guys were like, that church scene is incredible. It seems to get away with everything. Like, you know, like you've got prog, jazz, fusion, hip hop, like you've got the filthiest metal, like Meshuggah type sort of stabs and accents and stuff in the middle of
Yeah.
like a worship song, you know? So cool.
Yeah, I don't think it's as determined by record labels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like before I used to have like Malaco and Savoy and you know certain like you know record labels that concentrated on gospel artists, but now it's like especially with the internet, it's like gospel's already been wide open and now it's just more wide open.
And bro, who is MDing all of the major pop acts now? Who are the MDs? They're all church people, man. And they're creating some of the greatest live performances ever to be created, you know? What a great
Mm-hmm.
influence on the wider community. All right. So like, you know, that's when I was introduced to you at that time. And it's funny because when I came across you, I instantly Googled how old you were. And I think you've just had your birthday, you December?
Yeah, I know my birthday's November 23rd. I just
Oh,
turned
okay.
40.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're 6 months older than me. And that's what I always kept as this like rabbit ahead of me. I was like, well, I've just got to get really good in 6 months because he's only he's older than me by 6 months. And so that's always been this kind of like weird motive for me to like sort my shit out, you know? Not that I didn't get anywhere near your level, but I took an interest in you straight away. And then you happened to join my favorite band at the time. And that's always been a funny one for me because we've spoken enough for you to know how much I appreciate John Theodore, you know?
Yeah.
And when you jumped in that band, you started your tour from memory. I saw you in Auckland, and you started your tour in Australasia, like in Australia,
Yeah.
and I went to that gig, and I'd already seen John a couple of times with the band. And Deloused in the Crematorium is like one of my favorite albums of all time. Rick Rubin's touch on that was just fantastic, and what Omar and Cedric pulled out of John is just sublime, right? Similar to what I want to get in with you in a second. But then I was watching you play, and and you'd only just joined the band a couple of weeks prior from memory. Is that right?
Yep.
And I was struggling with watching these songs get played, but they weren't getting played. Like you weren't honoring John's parts yet.
Right.
And it was such a fucking problem for me, man. I was like, I love this guy and he's fucking incredible, but John's parts, man, you know. And then I actually watched you sort of evolve with the band, and then I know you went back and you started to actually kind of go, oh, okay, fuck, this is what he's doing, and or this is my
Like,
interpretation.
yeah, because like I'm saying, I'm trying to remember the 9 minute arrangements more than I'm trying to remember this drum thing that you care about. Like it's so hard. I had to learn the whole set, like the
Which is
lead.
amazing. I can't believe that you walked into that band with no practice. That's
Yeah,
insane, man.
I never heard them. Like I had to. I we practiced, but I didn't have enough time to like learn all the songs
Oh, to grab
and
onto anything. No way.
yeah, like ridiculously like you know specific drum things. I was like
But that's that shit, you know. And you said, I've heard you say that you did go back and actually kind of go over that stuff and sort of dial it in a little bit more later on. Is that right?
Yeah, I had, I would have people be like, that part in Delouse, you did not say it. I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? But at the same time, I wasn't a fan of the band. So it's like,
Yeah,
it's
true.
kind of how it is when you come into a situation and like when people always talk to me, I always tell people that they put me in the fire. Like
Yeah.
the other day I was they was like, oh man, we need a drummer today. I'm like, how many songs? They're like, let me send you a playlist. It's like 15, 16 songs. And so it's like people constantly do that to me. They constantly put me in these things where they be like, oh, we need a drummer now. Can you do it? I'm like, and I say yeah, because I enjoy it. I enjoy the fire aspect and I get better in it too. But
Yeah,
at
that's
that
a
time,
skill,
it was,
man. That's walking into the resistance, you know, and that's how you grow.
I'm saying, and I'm older, so I already know that the fans are gonna be like, I'd rather have Eric and Prompto on drums.
Oh,
Like,
that's so funny. Well, okay, so like you jump in with the Volta and then you start crushing it with them. Now, how old were you? 22? Is that right?
no, I might have been 23, 24, maybe.
I've always said, man, they were so lucky to get you specifically at that time because your style and your ferocity and what you could bring to it dynamically worked so well for them because that's what it required, man. It needed the highs and it needed the lows. And I would say that you were one of the only drummers in the genre, like in the world. I won't say genre because I don't want to compartmentalize. I don't want to sort of, box you in. But in the world that you came out of, from my perspective, I don't see many drummers being able to do the way that you did it. And so that's a hat tip to you, by the way. But one of the things that I want to talk about too is that I still like so John is my guy, bro. Like the Bedlam, sorry, not Bedlam, Deloused is still one of my favorite albums of all time, right? But I've said this to you in the past. I think that Bedlam is one of the best full bodies of recorded drumming that I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Bro, what you did on that album is insanely good, man. Like as like a showcase of what a drummer can do single-handedly and the songwriting and the ebbs and the flows and everything. Like it's just incredible, man.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
And, like I mean, every time I walk in the studio, I'm going ballistic, and it just all depends on like the music and like where people want to go with it, and like I'm like I always try to just go crazy with the music. I don't know, like when I first heard it, I was tripping out, but like I know how much work I put into like playing all these crazy ass parts,
Was Omar
and
pulling that out of you as well? Was Omar really like baiting you and really like kind of going, come on, man? Like, was he
he
pushing you?
he was just trying to piss me off. Like he was trying to like
Love
you
it.
know pissed me off. I also like didn't know what band I was in, so I don't know like the direction of sound you want to go.
Ah,
I
yeah,
would
true.
play a record with Christian Scott, and we fought for like a whole day trying to get the bass drum to sound like an 808. Or
Oh,
like the
wow.
other doing a session with somebody, and they wanted me to play super simple. You know what I mean? It's just like depends on the artist and how far they'll let you go. And like, somebody when they giving you a bunch of hits to play over, you know what I mean? It's a lot of hits. If somebody's giving you a bunch of hits to play over and they say play between the hits, you know what I mean? Okay, you know what I mean? I'm gonna play between the hits. So I kind of like have to. I don't want to make it sound like basketball, but I gotta play the game how the game is going. How the game is coming to me. So
Well, you played the game fucking well, man. Like you really
yeah,
like I say, they were lucky to have you, man. I know it was probably an amazing experience for you by and large in retrospect, like the scale of what it was and the Grammy and Letterman and all these things that don't happen to many drummers, especially not that many single things within a band. But man,
yeah.
I still say they were really lucky to have you because John was big shoes to fill. He was a very unique drummer. I don't see many guys from the gospel scene that have a real strong rock aesthetic. Not many guys can pull that off without still sounding like they're from that scene. And you just don't sound like that to me. Like you sound like you.
I feel the only okay. So one thing, let me correct you. I didn't feel John Theodore's shoes. I felt D'Anthony's shoes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. Right. Right.
After John was Blake, and then D'Anthony. D'Anthony was on the gig, and he wanted to do other things.
But that was from a
So
live perspective, though, right?
no, I mean I don't know. Like when I first saw the band, D'Anthony when they brought me to hang out, D'Anthony was the drummer. And
That might
so
have,
like
oh, okay. That might have been what they were wrestling with live or like in between. But from our perspective, those first three albums were John and then you were on the next one, you know?
that's
And
what
so
I'm
that,
saying. Like
yeah, okay.
that's why I didn't know. That's why I didn't know what the hell everybody was going through. Because I'm like, bro,
Well,
I
then what
don't.
the fuck were they going to do with D'Anthony? If you came in and did what you did, what was D'Anthony doing? What, like,
D'Anthony's raw as fuck. D'Anthony actually played with he when they changed their name to Bosnian Rainbows.
yeah.
That's D'Anthony.
Yes, 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 yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
D'Anthony's a badass, but I wasn't like people. The fans look at it like John Thomas, but it is hella people have played in this band. It's just you
Yeah.
just two or three people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but your workload with them, touring and then the albums, it really comes down to the LPs, you know, in my opinion. And that's leaving a stronger mark than just touring with them for 6 months. Or Elitch jumped in with them for a year after you, I think.
Even Zach Hill did a record with them.
With no, but not under the Volta title.
No, it wasn't under the Volta title, but it was a Volta S Zach record. You know what I
Interesting.
mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So looking back on that now, because I don't want to bleed on too much about it, and I know your time is precious. How do you sort of reflect on that period? Because, you know, like I've heard Omar sort of talk about and Cedric, and I've seen photos of you with John, and like, you know, you guys all seem really cool now and all of that. But looking back on it, how do you feel about it?
I feel like they could have paid me more money. I feel
Yeah.
like they was robbing me. I feel like that a lot of artists they get to this place where they like they you know they get to this place where they like they like okay I used to play with Tony Williams, Herbie Hancock, and Freddie Hubbard, but I know for me to get Herbie Hancock and Tony to come on this tour, I got to pay them right, so I'm gonna get a bunch of kids. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So a
yeah.
large amount of people do that, and I feel like I did what I was supposed to do, but I felt like on some compensation, and like I feel like they were using me low key.
Do
But
you
it's
get
like,
so without going into details, do you get kickback
yeah,
from those two albums, or was it a session at the end of the
yeah,
day?
I got money, and we had to do like a bunch of court bullshit.
Yeah.
But like, at the time when I was playing in that band, we could have wrote all the shit on a napkin.
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes you got these people who you'll go to dinner with them and y'all have this crazy dinner. And the next day you'll be like, they'll give you a contract and you're like, weren't we just at dinner drinking and saluting and so like as much as
Mm.
like, as much as I love playing music, when I retrospect, I'm glad that I did what I did and I'm glad that I got what I got out of it because I had people who was low-key using me.
Yeah,
You know
true.
what I mean? So it's like, and I also think, God had his own plan for me, like this whole time, dude, when I got into Volta, I was 23. I've been endorsed since I was 10.
I know.
So these companies all knew me. They all knew how I played. They knew I'm not no different. They knew what was going on. They
Mm.
just have the tendency of not promoting you until you play in a band they like.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So when Chris Dave was in mint condition, to all the black drummers, he was God. Modern Drummer didn't put Chris Dave into an article until he was playing with Maxwell.
That's
You see what
fucking
I'm saying?
crazy, eh? That's crazy.
So that's just kind of how this rolls. Like you go play with. I mean, we've known Teddy Campbell since we were kids. We've known Aaron Spears since we was kids. You don't see Aaron Spears until he's playing with Ariana Grande, but he's been doing 10 years with Usher.
I know.
But since you don't listen to Usher, you don't care. Or, for somebody to say Neil Peart's the best rock drummer in the world, but we can look at Billy Cobham and we can look at Tony Williams and we can look at countless other people who are playing their ass off. It's like you have a lot of nepotism in this business.
I
So
understand.
I,
And
I
and
just
also they hold it real safe, eh? Especially in the modern drummer world. I've followed that dialogue over the years and the old guard sort of holding on to the status quo of it all, you know? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, in some levels, I don't think necessarily it's all modern drummer. I'm just saying this is like a thing with this industry. And modern drummer tends to be the scapegoat because they've had at moments to have the opportunity to blow drummers up.
Yeah, true.
But I feel like I've been here for a long time before the Mars Volta. I mean, Christian Scott was nominated for a Grammy. The first record was first Out of College was nominated for Best Jazz Contemporary. The first Keisha Cole record went 3 times platinum. I was her music director. I was 19. So
Wow.
I've done a bunch of big things, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
And so you kind of look at it as just a moment in time that's happened. You know, you could have been compensated better. You're like you're grateful for what happened, but still, you know, it's a gig.
bro, I mean, I'm playing with Residente, right?
Yeah.
We go and we did Mexico to 200,000 people. I have to ask the drum companies. I'm like, why haven't I got an ad? Is this because of who I play for or how good I am?
That's crazy, man.
We played to 200,000 people. They won't post it. They won't,
Wow.
you know what I mean? But the moment I get a rock gig, they'll be like, oh, he's in Fever. It's like, what?
Oh,
Like,
true. So as soon as you jumped in with Fever, they were all over it again. Interesting.
or you'll see Josh Freeze all over the world, right?
Hmm.
But as soon as he get with the Foo Fighters, it's like, oh, he's with the Foo. It's like you only react to the bands you actually like. You know what I mean? Because it's not like people are not making waves.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
a music
absolutely.
where it's ton of waves. You know what I mean? You're just playing nepotism and you're picking and choosing. So
Yes. Yes. Yes.
that's just my issue with the whole entire industry. So I don't really care. Like, I don't like when I see a drummer and they be like the Drumio's best rock drummer. I just be like, oh, you were on the internet the most this year.
Exactly, bro. I see those things too. And look, you know, we've both been on Drumeo and Jared's done a lot for the drumming industry. But when I see stuff like that, I'm just like, I just don't engage in it, you know, that things
Yeah,
like
I
that.
mean, because it's not real. Because a lot of the guys that you see on the internet, when you get them in a club, they half the time don't want to play,
Yeah.
and then half the time they don't sound nowhere near these clips that they post up.
Yeah.
So it's like we're you can like my grandma used to say, your gift will make room for you.
Mm.
So you can see all these acknowledgments and all these accolades that all these people are receiving and know that you are better than them as a musician. Know that you are working more. And it's like, do you focus on that or do you just focus on what you're doing?
Mm.
So when I get in a situation, no matter if it's the Mars Volta, Eros, Residente, I just sit in my nucleus and just do my best
And
because
you
I
do a
know
damn good job of it, bro.
because I can't control the other thing. I'm not going to set up a camera for you to see that I'm on 200,000 people every night. If you didn't see it,
You didn't
whatever, the
see
right
it.
people will see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So like, okay, that's kind of a good segue because you do Fever 333, you do Residente, and I watch your socials, man, and you're always doing gigs around San Fran too. So and I see you and I love your inspiration. Oh, sorry, you're very improvisational still. Like you stay in that world of improv, which I think is a testament to your style as well. Like not everyone can sit in that space. They need to know what's going on. But I like the fact that you're looking and you're reading and you're just still. And bro, I mean, you're 40, so you've been playing for 37 years, man. And I still see a desire and I still see a hunger, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about that, and then I just want to ask you about the gigs, just to sort of summarize where you're at with your gigs. But like, where does your hunger come from still, man? Is it the pursuit of mastery? Like, you know, is it the desire, like you still have a hunger to get better?
Yeah. I'm like constantly like feeling like I suck. Like I feel like I suck until I'm playing. And then I'm like, I was all right. Like I'll tell you,
Yeah, I'm
I
all right. I'm all right.
was actually killing. I thought it was gonna be trash, you
Oh,
know.
that's gold.
Like I'm always like I'm my own worst, you know, and I'm also playing a lot. Like I don't really notice that I'm playing a lot, but I'm juggling 2 major gigs and then like playing around town and playing at home. So it's like I'm actually playing a lot and I don't realize it. And so I still want to play good. I still want to do new things. I still want to play
So
on
what,
crazier stages.
okay, so what are you working on in terms of like not gigs, but like when you sit down on the kit and you're working on stuff, like what are you working on at 37 years on the kit? Like what are your personal journeys on the kit right now?
Sometimes I'll tune my drums like jazz drums
Oh,
and try
cool.
to. Sometimes I'll tune my drums hella down like Steve Gadd and try to play fills all over them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I mix it up. Sometimes I'll play, you know, my whole full kit. Sometimes I'll play a snare and a bass drum and a hi-hat and just see how many things I can come up with.
And
You
when
know,
you
I
say
don't
full kit, do you mean two up, three down, two up, two down?
put down, you know, 2 up, just a regular kit. I just mix it up. And I'm not really I mean, to be honest with you, like a lot of the things that I watch people play, I can play them. Like I can decipher them in my mind without sitting on the drums.
Yeah.
So I'm not really chasing any drummer or drum thing. It's mainly just me fighting myself. Like
That's
I'll be
what I
trying to.
mean. I wouldn't expect you to say that, oh man, I'm really like, diving into this guy's playing right now. I mean the
Yeah,
personal journey, eh? Like your own journey with the kit.
yeah. I definitely am on that. I also have a homie who continues to travel back and forth through Africa, and he always is sending me all these links. So I'm trying to figure out how to solo over these weird ass beats. And then I like to change the drum setup a lot because that dictates how I play.
I
Like if I
agree.
play like a 26-inch bass drum with a 13, I'm gonna sound totally different than if I'm
I
playing on setup.
I
So
love doing that. Like I tuned my kit up to a jazz kit maybe 3 or 4 months ago and left it like it for 3 months, the studio kit. And it was so different, man. Just the
yeah,
recall and the responsiveness, and it completely changed the way that I approached the kit. I'm still me at the end of the day, but it's making me think different.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm doing that, and then like I'm still the same person, bro. I'm still sitting there being like, I still get on the phone, tell Eric that we can play circles around people. I still
Okay,
call
so yeah, so
Ronald.
so
Like, bro, Ronald, we
Eric is
call
one of your
Sally a
boys,
boo.
yeah? Eric is one of your bros.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just the same person because when I met Dennis Chambers, it was after Serious Moves and In the Pocket and all those videos. He was 40.
Wow. Yeah, true.
You know what I
Wow,
mean?
that's
When
crazy.
when
Fuck.
Vinny was doing Sting and doing all that 10 Summers Tales things, he was 40, bro.
Oh, bro, don't tell me that. It's like when people tell me that Homer was like 34 in The Simpsons. I'm like, oh, fuck.
You thinking backwards because I started so young. Like
Yeah.
most people don't blow up in their 20s. Like most
Yeah.
people blow up around their 30s. But yeah, I mean, Dave Weckl, he was playing those clubs, and when he changed his drum set for the first time, and his time was up in the air.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was 40, dude. Terry Bozzio is 66. I
That's so
think Vinny Cal
inspiring, eh?
6. Yeah, so I'd be like, Buddy Rich was on Johnny Carson at 55 doing that.
Love it, bro.
You
It's
know?
so cool when you think about it like that, like, man, because I'm hitting 40 in May, and I'm still so excited about the next 30 years of my journey, man. I'm not sitting
Yeah.
there going, oh fuck, I'm turning 40. I'm like, fuck, I'm turning 40, like I'm looking forward to the next 30 or 40 years on the kit. I'm just so pumped to watch that growth.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like even I mean, it's just because now you see younger artists on the internet. They can promote themselves. So you think like usually the younger guys would be in like, especially the younger bands, they would be in like artist development. They
Mm.
they would be blown up, but now the internet, everyone's out. So you think it's going super fast. But a lot of these guys are not on the road.
No,
They're
I know
not
that.
like they're not on the road like like Vinny was on the road, where Vinny
No.
was doing Sting and then doing uh Joni Mitchell. He doing hella people at a time. Or Dennis. Dennis was doing Steely Dan in 40s. Like these guys are playing shows where now on the internet it's like every day you gotta show someone you doing something, even when you not.
And most of the guys aren't, let's be honest.
So
The last thing that I wanted to touch on is, so I've got three kids. I've got a 19-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 14-week-old. And I think you've got a son that's almost the same age as my son. Is that right?
I have a 16-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old.
Awesome, bro. And I don't, and like I say, you don't have to talk about this. And I know it's not something you talk about often, but this is what I really appreciate about you too. And because I have people come up, I get into a lot of stuff online where I'm talking about showing up every day and mindset and just fucking getting on with the job and less talking, more doing. And people will come back to me and go, tell us you don't have kids without telling us you don't have kids. And I'm like, bro, not only do I have fucking kids, I've got 3 kids and I've been a parent for nearly 20 years now. They've never been a reason for me to not do something. If anything, it's been the opposite. They're a reason for me to do something. And because you haven't talked about it a lot, like how's the parenting sort of been within this?
I think it got better. At one time, I had like a crazy baby mama, and then now she's all mellow, and then like
Well, that helps.
my life is actually really chill.
I'm
Everybody
I'm
is
totally getting that from you as well. Like I'm totally feeling that you're pretty chill right
yeah,
now. Everything's all good.
yeah. Everything is super chill. It's almost like I talked to Jason. from Fever, I'd be like, man, life is kind of almost awkwardly chill. It's like, and that's kind of how it is. I'm chilling, I'm playing, I'm healthy, I'm going to the gym.
Awesome.
I think with my kids, they love me.
Yes.
Um, when I don't have no beef with nobody, like as far as like my family and I see them, it's just, you travel a lot and the people around you, they gotta know this is what you do, especially if you bring it home to baking.
And
And a
how do
lot
you
of
deal
people,
with that being on the road as a parent? Like, how do you deal with it emotionally? Do you just sort of compartmentalize it, or do you just,
yeah, I'm like, I think I'm desensitized to it. I think sometimes now I get a little bit homesick,
okay,
but just because like cause it's mainly because I'm not partying as much. Like
ah,
when I was raging out all the time, I didn't give a fuck, you know what I mean? But like
makes sense.
now that I'm like sober minded, I'm more like, I wonder what's going on. And just the climate of the world. Like you got people like war breaking out. And so like that keeps me like thinking about home a lot. I'd be like, man, I hope they, you got these people at these schools, calling schools and saying all kind of wild stuff. So I try to like, I just think about them and ways to protect them. And it's hard to like, it's hard, but
I imagine it's
I'm
hard. I mean, I know full well going on the road and sort of dealing with that sort of heart pull back home. It's one of the hardest things, in my opinion, about being a parent and being a musician, but it's also one of the most motivating things as well to like keep pushing. We'll leave it there, bro, just because it's like, we're an hour 15 in and I've kind of touched on I didn't want to take too much of your time up, but I also wanted to leave some room for down the track. We can get on another call and talk about some other stuff. But my main thing was for you to walk away with knowing how much you've personally impacted me and a lot of my circle in the Australian and the New Zealand community. Like you really are like your the influence that you've made over the last 15 years can't be understated. Okay. And so I thank you for that, bro, because like you kind of opened me up to things like inverted doubles and things like that, man. I'd never really sort of grasped that concept before. And then the way that you were using them in particular, that was basically when I was ready to hear them, I suppose, and your application of them. So yeah, man, like you've always set a pretty high standard for playing. And because you're 6 months older than me, I will get there. I will get you.
you got it, Stan. No, I
And
appreciate you.
yeah, bro. So yeah, let's keep in touch. And apart from that, thank you and all the best for over the new year with your gigs. I know you're not doing anything international, but you're hitting the scene again in February. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that's down the street. And February is around the corner. I'm
Yep.
doing when Fever opens up for Enter Shikari.
Oh, really?
Um,
Cool.
we start that February. Some of I think we end of March, and then we just recorded like the drums for the record, so we're gonna start dropping some songs.
Awesome.
And Free Nationals record comes out early this quarter. And
Cool.
then I think Residente comes out early this quarter too. And I start touring with Residente in April.
That's what I was going
So
to ask. And how long is that for?
that's like 2 or 3 months of just ridiculousness. I think we do like 3 months for Residente and take a break for the summer.
Wow, man. Well,
Yeah.
you're a weapon, bro. I love it. I love your work ethic and I love your honesty. And we'll leave it there, brother.
That's all love, Stan. I'll see you later, my guy.
Cool, bro. Have a good one.
Peace.